Hobby family, we have reached the end. What's going on, sports card family? Hope everyone is having a great holiday season so far. How are we doing? Temperature check. How's everybody doing? We are almost to the end of 2024. Can you actually believe that? About to roll into 2025. I'm still kind of in shock that the year is coming to an end. Before I dive into today's topic, big thanks to today's video sponsor, DC Sports 87. I actually have a couple of packages heading their way next week. You want to sell individual cards, but it's a lot of work to list and ship, pack, all the stuff you have to do selling cards on eBay. I send a lot of my stuff over to DC Sports 87 and they take care of everything. The payouts are really easy and fast. If you're thinking about consigning, check out DC Sports 87. All right, I've been doing some winter cleaning coming to the end of the year, and I found in my closet, at the bottom of the closet, and I haven't looked at this in a few years, but it's my box of cards when I was a kid. And I started thumbing through it, and I was just like, man, this brings me back. This brings me back in time. And I want to talk about some of the cards. I pulled out some of the cards, and we're just going to kind of talk through it a little bit. As a kid, I was largely a football card collector, and there's a couple of sets that popped up. I had not seen these in a while, but this is 1993 Game Day, and this is Fleer. It's a Fleer product, but these are tall boys. Sterling Sharp, going back to the early 90s, it was Brett Favre and Sterling Sharp for these Packers teams. I always rooted for the Packers in the 90s because I did not like the Cowboys, and so I was always rooting for Brett Favre to get over the hump and beat the Cowboys, and eventually they did. But those Game Day tall boys, I was trying to remember though, I think they came in packs that way, kind of those tall packs. If I remember correctly, if anybody does remember these cards and you remember how they were distributed, I'd be curious because I can't wrap my head around these are obviously pack pulled, but I can't remember exactly how they were distributed, and so that would be kind of fun to know. One of my favorite sets, and I remember a huge card going to card shows in the mall in the early 90s. This is the Ricky Watters rookie for Action Packed. And Action Packed, these are like 3D, like embossed cards. These are really, really cool cards when you think about like innovation in the space. Man, we came a long way from, 1989 Upper Deck where you just had the first kind of glossy, full glossy cards. Now you've got cards here, was this 92 or 93? 91. A couple years later, all of a sudden, boom, we've got, cards that are basically like busting out all three-dimensional and stuff. These were really thick cards too. It was like, wow, it felt premium. The big card that people were chasing was the Emmitt Smith rookie card. Not necessarily Ricky Watters, but Ricky Watters for the 49ers, he was a big name back then. I also had here his 91 Upper Deck rookie. I was all about the running backs, man. I had Neil Anderson, Ricky Watters, Jerome Bettis. I don't know if I pulled out the Jerome Bettis stuff, but yeah, a lot of running backs in my collection when I was a kid. Of course, the 89 score supplemental set, Sterling Sharp. And then we've got a couple of the Brett Favre rookie cards. We've got the Upper Deck and we've got the Fleer Ultra draft picks. Also had an 89 score Michael Irvin rookie card, as well as Jim Kelly, 87 tops. A variety of Michael Jordan cards, of course, 89 hoops, Upper Deck. Great picture on this one. There's some really great pictures on these. Fleer. Upper Deck, man. I tell you what, Upper Deck really was kind of the brand. Stadium Club and Upper Deck for me, I remember, man, this is like, those were a little bit more pricey, but, nothing against hoops, but it was definitely Upper Deck and Fleer Ultra. And then during the pandemic, I was going through my closet. I didn't realize that I had bought this Skybox, 1990-91 Skybox, just unopened packs. I might open this on the channel. Would anyone care to see me open this on the channel? I thought it'd actually be kind of fun to see if we can find Larry Bird, David Robinson, Jordan. Score Select. This was a guy that was supposed to do big things, Rick Meyer. Rick Meyer was a guy that was supposed to take on the world. I tell you what, man, these early Score Select stuff, there was some shine here. There were some good cards in these. Ooh, Pacific with another Rick Meyer. I was all about Rick Meyer, man. I was ready, locked and loaded with the Rick Meyer cards. Oh, another guy that was big back then, Chris Webber. And this was actually kind of an important card back then too. Classic made cards of Shaq and Chris Webber and some of these guys. Oh, this is funny. Rest in peace, Dikembe Mutombo, the Fleer rookie. This will get you right here. 1993 classic. If you can see that, one of 45,000 Drew Bledsoe rookie cards. one of 45,000 serial numbered. Well, not exactly, not serial numbered, but they just did let you know this is one of only 45,000 cards. Short print. A lot of people remember Harold Miner, Baby Jordan was hyped up, as well as Calbert Cheaney. Calbert Cheaney was a rookie going back in time that was speculated on quite a bit. I also happen to have a couple of the Marvel cards, the early 90s Marvel cards. There's the Hulk hologram there. And then early Skybox, Thunder and Lightning. These were really cool cards. And so this got me thinking, looking back at my old cards, and it seems primitive now to look back. How did I know that was the serious box of cards when I was a kid? Because the cards were actually in top loaders. It was like, oh man, these are the good cards because they're actually in penny sleeves and top loaders. Of course, no grading, or I guess in 1991 grading started with PSA, but it did not catch on until later in the 90s. And even, we've talked about this, I mean, for their first 10 years of business, PSA did 1 million cards. They graded 1 million cards in their first 10 years in total. They did 1 million cards. Now they do more than that every single month over there at PSA, and you've got other grading companies and so forth. SGC also started out early on, and then Beckett followed up about 10 years after them. It's kind of weird, but I actually appreciate those times even more when I'm looking back at the cards and I'm just thinking back to that time period. It's a lot more complex, complicated nowadays than it used to be. It was a much more simple world, simple hobby back in those days. Now, I do like a lot of the advancements. I do like some of the stuff from present day hobbying. I definitely do. There's a lot of things that are better today than there was 30 years ago, but there's some things I would argue that are not better than 30 years ago. And one thing that I hope that young people, because there's such an emphasis on that next generation getting into collecting, I've talked a lot about, hey, let's bring binders back. Like, not every card has got to be, in a mag or has to be graded. It's also cool just to have a binder of cool cards that you enjoy. And frankly, they make a lot of great looking cards these days. And even just in the last 30 years, if you look at kind of when I got out in the mid 90s, as I was getting older, from the mid 90s until now, pick your spots, but people will say, well, there's no innovation these days and that sort of stuff. And that's fine. Maybe it is a little bit redundant over the last 5 years, but we still have a long time there. There's a big, 25-year or so, period of time where cards were being made. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a PSA 10. It doesn't have to be an SGC 10 or a BGS 9.5. It doesn't have to be, a 90s essential credentials or whatever. It doesn't have to be an art to Bart, card. It doesn't have to be, an 86 Fleer Jordan. These are all amazing, amazing cards, but there's just so many cool cards to collect of players that you like. And I just hope for young people especially, adults too, for young people, there's a lot to be said for just, trading cards that are ungraded, that maybe it's not necessarily the flawless rookie, or it's not necessarily the Topps Chrome Auto or whatever the big hit of the day is. Just because it's not called a hit doesn't mean that it's not a cool card. And so as we come to the end of the year, I am extremely grateful for the hobby that was in 1989 and 1990 when I was in it, and the hobby that is now. There's a lot of, I think, good to take away from all of it. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is regardless of what you see on my channel or any other social media platform about kind of what's going on in cards, there's probably, 1,000 other things. Actually, not probably, there is 1,000 other different experiences, 1 million other different experiences, different cards that just aren't shown on social media. I'll show stuff that I think is cool, but what I think is cool, not everyone else is going to think is cool. And, there's so much out there over the last 100 plus years of trading cards. And that's just trading cards. We could get into all other sorts of collectibles. I've got all the things, that I'm into from the 80s and the 90s, the nostalgia stuff. Hell, we've got Ninja Turtle cards in here from 1990. But again, just so grateful for viewership, for the hobby, for everything that has happened getting back in here over the last 6 years, going on 7 years of getting back into collectibles. This channel's been a really fun ride for me to connect to people, get to know people better. And I truly do think there are more hobbyists of all age groups today than there ever have been in the history of sports card collecting, non-sports card collecting, and just collectibles in general. I don't think there's ever been more participation, and that's from including 1990, and that's including 2021. But that's a lesson I took from my 1990 days is you don't necessarily have to be spending $1 zillion to have fun in this game. That's kind of the big thing. Of course, I love to talk about, price changes and going after grails and personal grails and that sort of a thing. That's all fun, absolutely. But that's not necessarily for everybody either. You could have a binder of Ninja Turtle cards. You could have a binder of Skybox 1990, and maybe that is your connection to the nostalgia. That's your connection to your childhood and some good times. Thanks very much for joining me here today, friends. Cheers to the end of 2024. 2025 is going to be amazing. And remember, buy, sell, collect, trade, whatever the hell you want, regardless of what anybody says. It's your journey. It's your deal, man. It's your canvas. Paint whatever you want. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.